Right. Well, good morning. Thanks for joining me for this workshop on literature searching for researchers. Your library's got some fantastic tools to help you to search for high quality information from journal articles. And during this session, we're going to look at searching some of those databases that we have available. Not all of them. Going to focus on particularly the EBSCO database, and also Web of Science. But the tools and techniques that I'm going to demonstrate to you in the session are things you can use across any sort of database as well. So my name is Scott Chesworth. I'm a liaison and research support librarian at Keele, providing support to researchers in terms of training and also other support in using library resources. So there's me. If you need to get in touch with me, please feel free to contact me via Teams or via the email address. If you need to contact your library more generally, you can email library.help. And during our core office hours of 9 till 5, you'll be able to talk to a member of the team live via our library website using the live chat button. Also, your library website is the best place for you to access all of the fantastic resources that are available to you. And for researchers, we have a SharePoint site called Library Research Services, which has got great training resources and information to help you on your research journey. And you can also keep up to date with your library on social media. We're on Instagram at Keele Libraries, and we're also on Blue Sky at keelelibraries.bsky.social. Okay. So by the end of this session, you will create an effective search strategy for a research topic, because before you start searching for journal articles or any sort of information, it's worth thinking about what it is you want to search for to make your searching more optimal and more useful. So we're going to go through the process of creating what's called a search strategy for a particular topic. Once we've defined that search strategy, before you start searching again, think about what's called inclusion and exclusion criteria, ways that you can filter your articles down to a more useful and relevant set of results, depending on obviously what it is you're particularly searching for. So this gives you the opportunity to think about that. Then you'll apply the search strategy to find relevant journal articles from your library's databases, specifically EBSCO and the Web of Science are the ones we're going to focus on. EBSCO covers a wide variety of different subject areas. The Web of Science is more for the physical sciences than the social sciences, although there are social science content within there. And then I'll show you how to save relevant articles for future use within those databases. Okay, so that's what we're going to cover today. So this is the research question that we're going to search for articles on. How effective is paracetamol for treating fever in children? There are 5 stages to creating a search strategy. The first stage is to look at your question and identify the key concepts, the main keywords you would use to begin your search. Then you need to think of alternative keywords, because authors will use different keywords to explain similar concepts. But if you don't include those keywords in your search, the database won't find those articles. Then we will go on to apply special techniques which will allow us to manipulate the database to give us more results and to be more specific about the results that we want to retrieve. And that is applying things like truncation and phrase searching. The 4th stage is to apply what's called Boolean logic, which is applying and or to combine our search terms, both of which do different functions. And then we combine all of the above to create the search strategy in a format that the database will understand. And the idea of creating the search strategy is that when you do that first search, you're going to get the most relevant results to begin with, rather than just typing a few keywords here and there and seeing what you get. But you will be refining your search as you go along as well. So this is a starting point, but it is a good starting point. But I think it's important to understand what a database or a search engine does with your keywords, with your information. All they do is you put keywords into them, and then they will retrieve articles that match those keywords. They don't understand the meaning or the context of those keywords, they just match them. And the beauty of the English language is that some words that are spelt the same mean different things. And sometimes you'll look at your results and you'll think, why is that there? And it will be because you've included that keyword within your search. But also, like I say, because all they do is match and they don't understand what it is you're putting in there, that's why you have to think about the keywords you're using. And if they're not included in your search, then it won't find them. Okay, so bear that in mind as we're creating our search strategy. So the first stage is to look at the question and think about the keywords, the main concepts, only from the question that you would use. So you could put that question into a database and you'd get results, you'd get relevant results, but you'd also be missing a lot of things out just because you've not included those words in your search. So in the chat, could you put what you think the key concepts are, the main keywords just from this question, are from this question? So which keywords would you use to begin your search? Has everyone got access to the chat?
Yeah, I was gonna say paracetamol, fever, and children.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Yes. So yes, the key concepts are paracetamol, fever, and children. So we'll put them in here. Okay. A question can have three concepts. It could have less. It could have more. Depends what you're searching for, really. But we don't need to worry about any of the other words within that question. So we don't need to put how in there or is or treating. Effective could be a concept, but we're going to just focus, particularly if you're looking at efficacy of the treatment. But we'll just focus on paracetamol, fever in children. That's going to return some relevant articles. The second stage is to think of alternative keywords. The more keywords you include in your search, the more results, the more articles you'll retrieve. And there's no right or wrong answer to this. But if you can think of additional keywords, additional synonyms related to our concept terms, it will give you more results. But it's not always easy to think about these keywords off the top of your head. So, do consider using an online dictionary or a thesaurus if you're struggling with that. But now, just off the top of your heads, can you think of any additional keywords for each of our concept terms? And again, you're welcome to pop them in the chat, or you could unmute and let me know.
I say use fever, high temperature.
Yep.
Then children, maybe infants.
Okay, yes.
Yes.
That's good. And the interesting thing about our question is that it isn't defining what we mean by children. So you could look at young children, toddlers, infants, or you could look at older children. That is really up to you to decide. So yeah, fever, high temperature, paracetamol. You could use different brand names. What I've done, and like I say, there's no right or wrong answer to this, is I've put in acetaminophen, which is the medical term, and I think is also how it's referred to in America. High temperature, pyrexia, febrile, so medical terms. Toddlers, young children, kids. But again, no right or wrong answers. The third stage is to then apply special techniques which allow us to manipulate the database, because databases work in a certain way of you put keywords in, it matches those and retrieves information which matches the keywords. Sometimes we have to try and manipulate it to give us more results or to be more specific about what we want to retrieve. A technique you can use to get more results is applying truncation to our keywords. This is putting an asterisk symbol, the star symbol, at the end of a word which could potentially end with something else, like an S or an ing or an ed. So for instance, sport. With an asterisk, we'll find the keywords sports, sporty, sporting, sported, etc. And you don't have to put all of those different variants in. All you need to do is put the asterisk at the end of the word. But you do have to be careful about where the asterisk goes. Whilst it always appears at the end of the word, let's say instead of putting it at the end of the T, we remove the T and we put the asterisk at the end of the R. We'd get sport and its variants, but we'd also get spore and sporadic, which might not be what we wanted to see. But truncation is a useful tool for giving you more results. If you have two or more words and you want the database to find those words sitting next to one another exactly, as in climate change, for instance, you would put double quotation marks around those words to create what's called a phrase search. And what this tells the database is you want to find those words sitting next to one another. If you don't use quotation marks, what can sometimes happen in the databases is that it will search for the two terms separately. So you'd get articles which contain climate and also articles which contain change. So you wouldn't get climate change, you'd get more results than you perhaps wanted. So phrase searching is a way to get more specific results, particularly if you have two or more words and you want it to find those words exactly. Just a word of warning that it doesn't always work in every database. EBSCO doesn't seem to do phrase searching particularly well, because what it does is it does what's called proximity searching, where it looks for your keywords within 5 words. So it would find climate change, but it would also, if they were 5 words apart, it would still pick them up as well. So that's just something to bear in mind about how that works. But then we apply our truncation and phrase searching to our keywords. so that fever with an asterisk will give me fever, fevers, feverish, feverishness, fevered. You can combine both phrase searching and truncation together. So high temperature gives me high temperatures. Child, children, toddler, toddlers, young child, young children. But I've left kids as kids. Any idea why I haven't truncated kid? Well, if you do kid with an asterisk, you get kids, but I might also get kidnapped, which, well, it's not really what I was looking for. The fourth technique is to apply what's called Boolean logic, which is using and or specifically within our keywords. And they're used in different ways and do different things. So or comes between the keywords within your concept terms. What or does is it broadens your search out. If keyword 1 was fever and keyword 2 was high temperature, the shaded area indicates the number of results you would get which contain either of those terms. So you get a broader set of results. And the way to remember what or does is that or means more. But the really important one is and. And comes between your concepts. And is used to narrow your search down to be more specific about what it is we want to retrieve. So if concept 1 is paracetamol and concept 2 is fever, the shaded area are the articles that must contain either of those keywords. Therefore, you get a relevant, smaller set of results. And the way to remember what and does is that and is an acronym. And narrows down. So or means more and narrows down. We then apply our ors and ands to our keywords. So or comes between the keywords within a concept, so paracetamol or acetaminophen, and is between your concepts, fever or high temperature or pyrexia or febrile, and child or toddler or young child or kids. Ors and ands should be in block capitals to distinguish them between your keywords. Some databases will insist on that. Just get into the habit of putting your ors and ands in block capitals. And then we turn this into this, which is our search strategy, our search string, in a format that the database will understand. So for our research question, how effective is paracetamol for treating fever in children? We have created this string, paracetamol or acetaminophen enclosed in brackets, and fever or high temperature or pyrexia or febrile enclosed in brackets as well, and child or toddler or young child or kids, again, enclosed in brackets. So what the database will do is it will resolve the bits in brackets first before applying and. So it will look for articles which contain paracetamol or acetaminophen, fever or high temperature or pyrexia or febrile, child or toddler or young child or kids and their variants, add the ands, and then produce a relevant set of results. And my suggestion for you when you're typing out your search string is type it into a Word document, because then you can just copy and paste it. You don't have to keep typing it out when you're copying it and pasting it into different databases. It'll save you a lot of time. But also, if you make a mistake in terms of missing a punctuation symbol, missing a bracket, it will change the results. In some databases, it won't even run the search. It'll tell you there's an error, but it won't tell you what the error is. And it's much easier to check a Word document for the mistake than it is to go scrolling backwards and forwards through a search box, seeing if you can find that errant asterisk or bracket. So, to help you, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste our search strategy into the chat so that you can just copy and paste it, ready for actually applying it to the databases. Okay, so that is our search strategy, our search string. But before we start searching the databases for our journal articles, what we want to do is to think about our inclusion and exclusion criteria. What do we mean by that? Well, this is the way that we're going to refine our results when we get to the databases. How can you do that? Well, you could look at the years of research in terms of when articles were published. How far back do we need to search for articles? Because when you do that initial search, it will search and retrieve results as far back as it has available within the database. So do you need stuff as far back as that, historical? It depends, obviously, what you're looking at and what the topic is. But maybe you just want to look at the last 10 or 5 years worth of research, and that will reduce the number of results you get. Also, you can refine in some databases by audience. So the question, as I said, doesn't define what age of child we're looking at. So we can refine the results by age. We could also refine by gender if we wanted to look at the effects on boys or girls. So that option is available for you as well. Also, do we want to just focus on peer-reviewed sources? Now, the databases, the library databases, tend to be more peer-reviewed sources, more academic, more articles from academic journals, more so than things you would find on Google in terms of websites or magazine content. But there is the option to just focus on the academic journals, the peer-reviewed sources. What do we mean by peer-reviewed? Well, a peer-reviewed source is one that's been written and authenticated by subject specialist experts, so you know it's been approved. It's of quality, although quality is always something you have to determine for yourself, because anything you use in your work that isn't credible affects the credibility of your work. So you do have to evaluate what you use. Another thing we could look at refining by is geography in terms of the location of the research that's being conducted. So are we only focusing on UK studies? Are we more interested in other countries? So that is something you can refine by. Also, it is possible to refine in some databases by methodology. So in terms of study types, are you looking at quantitative data, qualitative research? You have that option available as well. And also, when you're doing your search, do you want to do an all-text search where you'll find as many results as possible, so where the database will search for your keywords throughout the entire document, the title, the abstract, the subject keywords, and the full text if it is viewable within the database? So you get more results, but they don't always look immediately relevant when you're looking at the titles, but they will all contain the keywords from the search and at least one keyword from each concept, because that's what the AND is doing. Or you could do a title search or an abstract search where you'll get a smaller set of results, particularly with title, because it will only search article titles for your keywords. And this is where sometimes you get a very small set of results or no results. And it isn't because there aren't any articles that have been written on that particular topic. It just means that there are no titles, no article titles, which must contain one of the keywords from our concepts. So abstract is more likely to give you better results, more relevant looking results than possibly a title search would do. And again, you'll get more results for the abstract than the title, and a lot more results from the alt text. So there's various options available to you. Okay. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do some live demonstrations. Within the slides, there are step-by-step instructions on what I'm going to do, showing you how to use EBSCO and Web of Science, but I think it will be more useful for me to do a live demo. So let's stop sharing these slides. And we'll go on to the web. Okay. So the first thing you need to do is to go onto the library website, which you can get to by going to keele.ac.uk/library or putting Keele Library into Google. That will take you to our homepage. You must always access the databases through your library's website, because that is how you access the actual subscription content, the authentication links. If you just do a search for EBSCO or Web of Science, all that will do is take you to the publisher's page and you won't have access to the actual content. To get to the databases, the best way and the quickest way is to go to the A to Z of your library, click on D, and you'll see databases. The A to Z of your library contains lots of training resources, workshops, sways. Do have a look at those. Some useful content within the A to Z of your library. So the databases page provides, again, some guidance, some resources on using the databases. And then there are specific links to EBSCO, ProQuest, and the Web of Science. We're going to focus on EBSCO and the Web of Science. EBSCO and ProQuest are very similar in that they cover a wide variety of different subject areas. When you are searching for articles, particularly if you're doing a literature search, you want to try and find as many results as possible. So it is worth looking at different databases because they've got different specialisms. They're all licensed to index from different journals. So you will get different sets of results from those databases. So we'll click how do I use EBSCO databases, and we'll go to EBSCO databases, include, click this link, and that will open up the EBSCO database. EBSCO is broken down into smaller subject-specific databases, as you can see here. And one of the ways that we can begin to filter our search is to think about what our question is about. It's a medical question. So we can focus on using the core medicine databases. So if I click here, we will be searching Medline, APA PsycInfo, APA Psych articles. Okay. So already we're refining our results to a more relevant subject-specific database. Click the title to go into the database itself, and you'll be able to build a search here from scratch using ands and ors, but we don't need to do that. We've done the hard bit, so all we need to do is paste our search into the top box. So you can see we've got the whole search strategy here. And then where it says select a field, this is where you can select alt text, title, or abstract. I'm going to do an abstract search. So we get 611 results, which is not a bad start, but obviously you don't want to look through all 611. But let's have a look at what we can see in the results. So we can see the titles of articles. We can see the authors of the article, the journal it was published in, the year, the volume, the issue, the page numbers, everything you would need to reference that particular source. You'll also notice that keywords are highlighted. So these are the keywords that we have used in our search strategy, so we can see where it is picking up those keywords from. If I click on a title to go into the catalogue record, you'll notice your keywords are highlighted throughout the abstract as well. And you'll see that it has picked up one keyword from each of our concepts: young children, paracetamol, and high temperature. And that's what the database will do. It will pick up at least one of your keywords from each concept. Otherwise, it wouldn't retrieve those particular results. So we can see this article title. Perhaps it doesn't look particularly relevant to begin with, so we'd have a look at the abstract, which provides a summary of what the article is going to discuss. So always worth having a look at the title and the abstract before actually searching the full text of an article to decide whether it is going to be of use. And we can see quite clearly where it's picking up our keywords and decide from its relevance. It's also worth looking at the subject keywords, because this can give us additional keywords to include on our search that we may not have considered. And remember, the search strategy is a starting point. You will be refining your search as you go along. Over on the right hand side, there are various ways you can share this article. You can add it to your folder, which adds it into the folder within EBSCO, but only whilst you are logged in. Only whilst you're on EBSCO. If you want to access anything you've saved at a later date, you have to create a personal account within EBSCO. It's free to set up, and then make sure you're signed in to access those articles once you have saved them. You could also share to your OneDrive, email them, save them to your local area, print, really whatever you want to do with that particular article. Now, this article doesn't have the full text viewable within EBSCO, but if you click where it says at Kiel, you can see where you can actually access the full text of the article from your library's collections. So if we click this link, what it does, it takes me to Library Search, and I can see that this journal article is available from the Wiley collection. And then clicking this link from the catalogue will take me directly to that journal article where I've got full access and I can read the full article. So let's just go back to our search results. One of the things you don't need to filter by in the database is to limit to full text. If you only wanted to see articles which have the full text available within the database, you might think, I'll limit to that. But you don't need to do that, because in most cases, you'll always be able to access the full text of the journal article, maybe not through the database directly, but via the @Kiel link, which takes you to the catalogue, which takes you to the full text. So don't filter by full text. You don't need to worry about doing that. But we've got 611 articles here. Let's filter them down to a more manageable number. And we can do that using the filters on the left-hand side of the screen. So at the moment, under publication date, we've got articles that were published in 1975 right up to 2025. Well, let's take that down to the last 5 years. 129. The filters that remain on the left-hand side refer to the 129 articles that are left. So that reduces what is available in terms of filters. And if you do ever find you've gone a little bit too far down the rabbit hole, you can remove a filter by clicking the cross symbol, and it'll take you back to an earlier set of results. But we're doing okay at the moment. So age was one of our inclusion and exclusion criterias. And if we go to show more, we can actually refine it down to a specific age range, and the number next to the category indicates the number of results that contain that age range. So I want to focus on infants particularly. So I'm going to include birth to 23 months, infant 1 to 23 months, preschool 2 to 5 years, birth to 1 month. Okay. Click update. And we're down to 34 results. And again, the filters, as you can see, there are less of them available now, but we still have geography. But if we wanted to focus on UK studies, well, we haven't got the UK there anymore. So although these are focusing on younger children, they may not be UK related. They may not necessarily directly refer to the UK. So you would have to look at those articles in more detail. Now, when you're happy with your results, there are a couple of ways you can save them. If you want to save all 34 results, you change the page options here to at least 50 results per page. And then you can use the share option here to save all 34 results to your folder, which is up here. And again, like I say, unless you are signed in to EBSCO and you've created a personal account, these articles will disappear once you close your session down. But they are saved into the folder. Okay, so that's EBSCO. Let's go back to the databases page, and this time let's look at the Web of Science. And we'll go into the Web of Science core collection. Paste our search. And we've got the choice here to do all fields, so that's all text basically, a topic search, which researches the title, abstract, keywords, and author keywords, so that's similar to all fields. Title, where we'll only search the article titles, or abstract. Let's do abstract again. And click search. So we've got 512 results here. And again, let's just show you what's going on with the Web of Science. So you can see, again, article titles, authors of the article, the journal, issue, volume numbers, year, page numbers, everything you would need to reference it. But what is different with the Web of Science, if we go into a record, and let's look at this one, because we did see this one on EBSCO. Keywords again are highlighted throughout the abstract. And the important thing to remember about the Web of Science is the Web of Science is an abstract database. There are no full text articles within Web of Science, but you can access the full text by clicking the @keel symbol, which again takes you to our library catalogue to where you can access the full text of the article. But what is different about the Web of Science is this on the right-hand side, the citation network. Because what it does that EBSCO doesn't is you can see the articles that are referring to this article, so the citations that have actually referenced this article, but you can also see the references that the article has used as well. So this allows you to see how the research is being used by others, and also the references, the articles that informed the article that you're looking at. So you can actually see the full progress of this article, how it's influencing other articles, but also how it was influenced in its creation. So if we click here, these are the 31 results that have referred to the article, Use of Over-the-Counter Medicines for Young Children in Australia. So you can see how that article is being used. If we go back, we can also see the references that the article used. So you can, when you're reading the article, rather than taking at face value what the author says, you can actually go back to the original article that is being referenced and understand the context more of what is being said. So there's a lot more you can do with the Web of Science to understand how an article was created and how it is influencing other research as well. So that's what's really useful about using the Web of Science. Again, it has filters over on the left-hand side, and we can filter by publication years. So if we go to see all, we can choose to include or exclude certain years. So let's, again, choose the last 5 years of results. Again, the number here indicates the number of articles which matches those years. We click refine, and we're down to 144 results. And then there are other ways you can filter those results down, but not by things like age or gender. So there are limitations compared to what we had before, but we can do countries and regions. So let's say we focused on the UK, so we can do England. Yeah, let's just go with that and refine. And then we're down to the 10 results. When you're happy with your set of results, to save them, select and then click Add to Marked List. And they are saved up here in your marked list in this folder here under Documents. But again, once you close Web of Science down, they'll be gone unless you have created a personal account within the Web of Science and you signed in, and therefore they will be saved. The other thing you could do with the Web of Science, if I just remove that filter, is you can do something called analyze results. So of these 144 results, if I go to analyze results, I can look at a tree map under different categories. So let's say I wanted to see which countries were doing research on this particular topic. I can look at the first 10 results and see that most of the research is being done in America. And this can be useful for you to think about areas you might want to collaborate with or areas that you're in competition with. So it's a good way to actually see at a glance where research is being conducted, and there are lots of different things that you can filter by in this analyze results. So you can create quick tree maps to really understand those articles. Okay. So I'll just stop sharing that. We'll go back to slides. Any questions so far about anything that I've shown you? Not window. Okay. So like I say, the slideshow goes through the step-by-step instructions on how to do everything that I've shown you today. You will also have access to this recording. So let's summarize things. Before you start searching for articles, it is worth looking at the question, looking at the topic, and thinking about the keywords that you're going to search for before you start actually looking for that information. Consider creating a search strategy using the 5 stages of looking at the question, identifying the additional keywords, applying special techniques like truncation and phrase searching, applying Boolean logic using and or, and also creating the search strategy in a search string in a format that the database will understand. Before you start searching, think about the inclusion and exclusion criteria to help you to filter your search results down further. And when you're looking at the journal articles, have a look at subject keywords, have a look at what is coming up to help you to refine those results down, to include keywords you may not have thought about, which are really useful in your search. When you're happy with what you've saved, with what you've searched for, do save any relevant articles, but remember that if you want to access them after you've closed the session down, you have to be signed in to the account, so you can set up free accounts within all of the databases in order to save articles to look at a later date. It is worth using different databases to find more articles, particularly when you're doing a literature search, because they all have different specialisms. They're all licensed to index from different journals. There'll be some crossover with journal articles, as we saw, but generally you'll get different results. Okay. So returning to our learning outcomes, you can now create an effective search strategy for a research topic, define inclusion and exclusion criteria for a topic, and apply your search strategy to find relevant journal articles from your library's databases. So we focused on EBSCO and Web of Science particularly, but the techniques and the tools can be used across all of your library's databases. And you know now how to save relevant articles, but remember you do have to set up personal accounts to access them after you close that session down. Okay, so if you want to be in with a chance to win £1,000, please do, if you haven't already, complete the Postgraduate Taught Experience survey, which you can get to at the web address on the screen. You probably have already had an email about this, but you'll be entered into a prize draw for £1,000, which is always worth doing. It's always nice to get your feedback on your experience as well, because that helps us to improve what we're doing. So thank you so much for joining me for this session. I hope it's been useful.